Baby's so cultured already.
Baby's cultured enough to smoke a cigar. Hello, I'm Justin.
I'm Mark,
We're the J-Pops.
and we are attempting parenting in Japan. Today, we want to give a couple updates about our pregnancies and go over some car-related car seat topics. So right now, Moe is at 21 weeks and 3 days, and nothing new really to report other than her stomach's getting a little bit bigger and the baby is moving a whole lot more. Pretty much anytime she lays down, that baby is moving around waiting to get out.
Yeah, we're the same way. I think we talked about this maybe a little last week, but it's the idea that when the mother's in motion, the baby's rocking around a little bit and chilled out.
Yeah.
And then when the mother settles down, the baby's like, whoa, 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 where's the action? And the baby starts to kick a little bit. And yeah, we've definitely been going through that as well. I think we're at 28 weeks right now.
Nice.
I believe that's the count. Yeah, we just had an appointment. I say we, I mean my wife.
Right.
Still, coronavirus measures prevent the likes of Mark and me from going to such appointments. So I haven't been to any of them. At least I haven't been allowed into the office. I've sat in the hallway before, but
Yeah, me too.
yeah. My wife had an appointment yesterday, and things are basically fine. It's more of the no news is good news kind of a thing.
That's good.
I should report that I learned something, I guess, from this last one, and that's that they scheduled a C-section, but not one that we may need to do. It's just in the event that we need to do a C-section, they said that their schedule is a little bit tight, so they're going to go ahead and schedule one for us.
What would happen if you needed a C-section and you didn't have the appointment? Would they just say no?
Good question.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of an emergency situation anyway. So
yeah, I think, well, this is a little trivia that I heard years ago, and I assume it's true, but the trivia question was, what day is the least held birthday in the United States? Like, there's one day a year.
It's got to be a leap year.
Oh, okay. Let's say aside from the leap year.
Oh, okay.
of the standard deck of 365 days.
Oh, okay.
There's one day of the year that has the fewest birthdays, like markedly the fewest birthdays.
I have no idea.
The answer is Christmas Day. And the reason it's Christmas Day is because nobody would schedule a C-section for Christmas Day. And, doctors would like off, the mothers would rather be with their family, maybe do the C-section a week earlier, a week after or something, but not on Christmas Day. So that has the fewest birthdays in the U.S. And this is according to the random Snapple cap that I read that under. However I heard this information, I can't remember.
But, I hope they put that in Snapple caps now. Do they still sell Snapple?
I don't know if Snapple caps are still a thing. All my references to anything in the United States are 15 years old at this point, so Snapple could be of the past. That Snapple lady from the commercials might have died 7 years ago. Nobody knows. Nobody can keep
It'll go well with my Tamagotchi reference from the previous episode.
Exactly. Snapple and Tamagotchi sponsorships are still available on the J-Pops if Snapple and Tamagotchi do still indeed exist. But so there's a little bit of a concern, like the baby has to flip into position at some point. The baby has to go head down to avoid the breech birth. And our baby has yet to flip, and it still has time to flip. There's still more than enough time, and the baby could still turn over. But they're saying in case the baby doesn't flip and it would be a breech birth, we need to get a C-section done. We'll go ahead and give you a C-section appointment. And the kind of interesting thing I learned about this, our due date is February 25th, right? Okay. So I thought if we're scheduling a C-section date, and I got greedy, and I was thinking, I hope it's February 22nd, because then you get the 2/22/22 birthday, and how could you not want to schedule your C-section on that day?
It would be easy to remember.
Yeah, it's just it comes once every 11 years. It's such a prime date. But then my wife quickly corrected me and set me straight and said that, they wouldn't schedule a C-section 3 days before the due dates, because the baby could just come, naturally, say 4 days before the due date, and then your C-section appointment is all for naught, and you've got
Oh,
suddenly the kind of emergency situation that you're talking about. So you're
gotcha.
not gonna like leave a breech birth right up until the last day, for the C-section. So
Hmm.
when they schedule a C-section to avoid some type of problem, they tend to do it like 3 weeks beforehand. So our
Hmm.
C-section date is something on the order of 3 weeks before the actual due date.
And that's
Uh,
all under the assumption that if the baby doesn't turn before that, they'll just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And if the baby turns, it's like, okay, C section no longer necessary. They might keep the appointment on the books for a bit in case something else goes awry. I don't know. But so we are locked in for a possible C section that may or may not happen. So that was kind of the new development at this appointment. But in general, it's like if that's your worst problem, then that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So we're feeling pretty fine about it.
Nice. You have an update from Casey about last week's podcast, I hear.
Yes, yes. Casey was our guest last week. If you haven't listened, go back and listen, of course. Casey said that he thought of one more bit of advice that he didn't get to last time. We were asking about how you sort of maintain your personal time.
Mm.
And, you've got the kid who's obviously going to take up a lot of your free time, or what used to be your free time is now dedicated to the kid. And Casey said, one thing I forgot to say when you asked about finding time to do stuff or personal time was that it's important for the parents to allow each other to take time to do things alone, like taking care of the kid so the spouse can get out of Dodge for a few hours or whatever. So that was Casey's follow-up comment is, be sure to take over the parenting duties for hours at a time and then give your spouse a break.
Nice.
I've also heard Casey say in the past, Casey has 2 sons, and he said it's a lot different when it's sort of a one-on-one, because then, if it's one parent and one child while the other parent can sort of get out of the house, that's a lot easier. But when you have the second kid, it's one parent against 2, and then it gets markedly more difficult, and then it's harder to like give that free time. So this is maybe let's call it a one-child policy. No, that's not the
Gotcha.
right phrase at all. Yeah, so I think that's probably best when you've got the one, but manageable with 2, just harder.
Yeah, I've given that some thought, and we've talked about it a bit already. I think I'm very good with setting aside time for myself to kind of decompress and de-stress and kind of do my own thing, but Moe is pretty bad at it in general. So I think we're gonna have to schedule some of that stuff ourselves.
Yeah, sounds good. It's probably something that's good to be proactive about, like maybe
Yeah.
a bit similar to in a Japanese company, everyone has vacation time and then they just don't take the vacation time.
Right.
And, in America, it's more of a priority. Like, oh, I've got this many vacation days. I'm putting those on the schedule from day one. I'm figuring that stuff out. But in Japan, there's a bit.
I like to bank my vacation days.
Oh, yeah. Roll them
If
over, huh?
I feel like it's a little bit of a safety net.
Hmm.
Maybe that's just because I live like 6,000 miles away from my company, and if they pull the plug on me, I'm kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of left out here. So I like to have that little bank. So I don't take a lot of vacation days, but I
Yeah.
get all the American holidays, which are pretty great.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever works. I'm just thinking in Japanese business culture, it's kind of like the childcare leave. I've read that Japan has the most generous parental leave system in the world. And then I think you read as well, that it's like 7% of fathers make use of the parental leave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
7%. It's just amazing.
ridiculously low.
Yeah. So anyway, I fully encourage everyone to take advantage of these systems and their time off. And be proactive in scheduling it, just like, proactive in scheduling a few hours out of the house once the
Yep.
kids get here.
We'll see how realistic that is, but I'm optimistic at this point.
Yeah, that's good. Everything we got is just speculation, so
Yeah.
we'll see how it plays out. I want to do another update,
Yes.
and this is the Amazon registry update. We talked about it now, I don't know, like 4 out of our 5 episodes or something. We've talked about this Amazon registry.
Plugging Amazon a lot.
Yeah, we're all over this as if they
Come
need
on,
it.
sponsorship.
Bezos. It actually worked. I successfully received 2 things so far
Nice.
from our Amazon registry, and they were both purchased by someone in America and I received them in Japan, and it all worked out. So just to recap, you have to make your registry on, if you're in Japan, like we are, make your registry on amazon.co.jp. That'll handle a registry. Then when you send that link to someone in the US, that person will have to make a .co.jp account, and from that account they can very easily shop on your co.jp registry.
Right.
Most of your American friends and family will just have the regular .com Amazon accounts, but they are sort of non-overlapping accounts, and so you'll have to create both of them. But it was relatively painless. I mean, it was just as difficult as signing up for a regular Amazon account, so no big deal. And we got a couple of things. One of those things is the book Goodnight Moon,
Oh,
classic.
nice.
Can't do
That's a good
without.
one.
And the other thing is sort of I don't even know what to call it, but it's kind of a hybrid, like baby bed changing station playpen
Oh,
sort
I've
of a
been looking
thing.
at those.
It's the sort of thing with a platform in the middle that you would use as a baby's bed, and then as
Yeah.
the kid gets into toddlerhood or a bit older, you can drop that platform down to the bottom, and it's actually sort of a full playpen. So we got one. We set it up yesterday. It seems to be working out. So I
Nice.
guess I recommend it. I haven't actually used it yet, but we've got it set up in the living room. It seems to be fine.
So we're planning on getting one of those as well and putting it downstairs as like a nap slash changing slash play area, and then having a separate one upstairs that's more like a traditional crib, but that's also like bassinet combo. Are you guys
Mhm.
doing that style as well?
Yeah, we picked up a crib from Facebook Marketplace through a friend of ours, and so we've got a crib upstairs in the baby room, and then we sort of got this. I wanted a playpen, and that
Mm.
was one of my goals from the beginning of the registry, because I don't see playpens often in Japan.
No, I don't either.
They seem like so useful to me, especially when like half of the doors in this country are made out of paper, and then like you don't want like a 1 year old just toddling into every shoji door that you have and busting them all out, which is
Right.
inevitable, I'm sure.
Oh
But
yeah.
playpen seems to like cut down the anxiety, and I was raised in a playpen. I was happy with it. Kind of
Yeah, I
enjoyed
think
it.
I
Your own
was
little
too.
world in there.
Probably one of those old metal rusty ones.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the like ratcheting like metal arms of my old playpen that were just like ready to pinch anything you could get near them. But
Yeah.
yeah, it seems to be like a good way to go. And we got one, we set it up in the living room, and we're kind of imagining, you know, upstairs, if the kid's sleeping through the night, that's fine. But then there'll be a lot of feedings and a lot of oh, the baby's crying, and then maybe have a downstairs zone as well with a bit of a bed that
Hmm.
this hybrid playpen baby bed can manage. So we've kind of got two sleeping zones.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking too. I like the idea of those because they're kind of portable too. So if you're going over to
Yeah.
people's houses, you can like collapse that thing, bring it over. And I never see people do it in Japan, but I'm planning to do it.
Yeah, me too. This one is theoretically easy to collapse. There's like a nylon handle in the center of the bottom of it, and you pull up
Mm.
on that, and then the whole thing folds in on itself, and it's got a bag, and it's kind of like a really bulky, big, heavy version of like a camping chair, that you collapse down and then slide into a sleeve kind of a
Nice.
bag. And yeah, that should be great. I would love to take this thing around. It seems like it solves a lot of trouble of I mean, just shoji are always on my mind, the paper doors and windows and stuff. I would
Looking
hate to
behind
take
you
my
right now, all I see is shoji.
yeah, this
Your house
house.
is just paper.
Yeah, it's mostly shoji, and that's actually a problem here. It's not even safe to live in this house because it's half made out of paper. Legitimately, we've had construction companies come over to this house to talk about remodeling, and they said like, "Well, you've got to put in some walls
Yeah.
first of all because it's held up by paper as of now." So yeah, it's all over, and it's a constant concern. But yeah, it works for the Japanese, so they've gone without playpens largely for all this time. So there must
Yeah.
be a method that I just
Yeah.
don't know. There's also a pretty big market here for those like sort of plastic walls, basically, that are maybe a foot and a half or 2 feet high,
Right.
and you buy like 12 of those, and then you can set them up in any configuration, and it's kind of makes like a pen or something. I've seen those here and there.
I'm always a little worried about those because they just don't seem stable. And all the kids I've had experience with, like my nieces and nephews, they're very grabby and trying to
Mhm.
pull themselves up on whatever they can. and it
Yeah.
just seems like those are going to come down super fast.
Yeah, and those plastic pins, I mean, it's just this hollow plastic, and if a kid leans on one of them, I imagine the whole pin slides over in that direction.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't imagine that they're that good. So
No.
playpen seems a bit more like a solid prison to drop the little kid in, and there's no hope of escape. That's what I want.
That's right. Pure safety.
Yeah, pure safety, baby, for his own good. So that's our Amazon roundup. I should say one other thing about Amazon. With the book that we received, there was a lovely little note in there that said like, "Oh, congratulations, we love you guys," and it was signed, printed off, of course. But I knew who sent the book. This playpen is a total mystery.
Wow.
There was nothing whatsoever included with the playpen that lets me know who gave me the playpen.
Huh.
So I need to poke around the website a bit more and see if I can figure out who actually sent this. As of now, it's a mystery. And then there's kind of the awkward question of asking a lot of people, "Did you send me this? Did you send me this?" So I don't know how to go about that if I have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I never thought about people buying stuff off the registry secretly.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were buying something off a registry, I wouldn't want it to be a secret, I guess.
Yeah. You just, there's always the issue of a thank you card. You're going to send a thank you card for sure. So the recipient kind of just has to know.
Yeah. Maybe they just didn't know and forgot and skipped that part. So it could just be like user error a little bit.
Yeah. Or maybe it's not obvious or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, no idea. It could be as well like where this was sent from. Maybe whatever sender, I don't know, did or did not include the note, or maybe it's not a possibility or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's possible.
Anyhow, yeah. So Amazon works. I am back to giving it my stamp of approval. I was a little sketchy there in the middle, but now I'm fine again.
Nice.
How about our main topic for today? And that is a little homage to Click and Clack, the Tappert brothers. This is car talk. We're going to do some baby approved car talk here. I know you and your wife are set on cars. Yes. You very recently purchased a truck, and
I did.
Your wife has sort of an SUV-ish sort of a thing.
Yeah, it's like a small SUV.
Yeah, and so I'm sure you've envisioned like bringing the baby seat into that, getting the baby in and out of both of those vehicles, and that all seems like a-okay to you.
Yeah, the truck is a little bit higher, so I think if we go anywhere and I'm using that, then it'll primarily be me taking the kid in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for at least the first year, at least while we're using like car seats and taking it in and out of the car, we'll be using her car mostly, just because it's better on gas too.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are in the position right now of having 2 K cars. You have 2 full-size cars, and they're large-ish full-sized cars.
For Japan, yeah, they're large.
And that's great for space and, for all the future, again, like the moving of the playpen and stuff like that. Just throw it in the back. It's easy.
Yeah.
Or as you get into the, if you go 5-6 years in the future, if the kid's on a little sports team or something and you've got to, take other kids or, loads of gear, your cars will be set. We are in a 2K car household right now. We've got a Le Pen, which is, 4-seater K car, like a car style. And I've got your old K truck, which is a 2-seater and probably not good for taking a child of any age anywhere. I mean, maybe when the kid is like 4 or 5 years old, you can pop them in, but
with a booster, maybe.
Yeah. It feels a little sketchy. The K truck I always think is strange. Like where your feet are in the K truck is essentially like your feet are just inside the front bumper, and you're just inches away from whatever you might collide with. It's kind of, it always sketches me out.
Yeah, it's basically one step away from the Flintstones car.
Yeah,
you could run pedal this thing.
Yeah, and furthermore, the engine is right under the seats. The 2 seats are sitting on top of the engine in this tiny vehicle. And so, the engine is right under where you're sitting. If you remove that engine, you could pop your feet through and you could run along the ground and move it along.
They're light enough. You could probably get away with it.
Yeah. When I have to repark the K truck, I don't even turn it on. I just put it in neutral and move it around the parking area. It's so tiny. You can just walk it here and there. It's like a little go-kart. But nice. Anyway, so those are the 2 cars. We thought we need to upgrade one of the cars for various purposes. when we have the kid, and we've been on the car hunt since then. So we've been kind of prioritizing and thinking about these things. But you've also looked into some car safety, eh?
I have. Yeah, I've been looking into a lot of different car seat options.
Yeah, good. So what is your official report on the car seat?
Well, it's a bit frustrating in Japan. So, in my research, I've discovered only 70% of people use car seats with their kids in the car, which I think is incredibly low. I don't know what the US is at, but I'm sure it's closer into the 90s. And I think that's only in the past couple years that number has gotten even so high in Japan towards 70. I think it's probably been less than 50 even a couple years ago because they didn't have a strict law. I think it was until 99 when they put a child seat law into effect in Japan, saying that kids had to be strapped into something. And
Mm-hmm.
so most parents throughout Japan, you'll see them on the roads. They just let their kids kind of wander around the car while they're driving. And
Mm.
it's baffling, I think, for a lot of people who come here for the first time, because you'll just see this kid like ping ponging around the seats and the mom just driving up front. I don't know how she doesn't wreck the car every time.
Yeah, I've noticed that a bit, and then it's strangely lax. It's like I always say, to understand Japan from the American perspective, you should picture like a Leave It to Beaver episode, and then imagine kind of what was the mentality around car seats and car safety with a child back in the U.S. in the 50s or something. Like, yeah, just lay them in the floorboard, they'll be fine. Like that sort of an
Yeah,
idea.
it's basically the same.
So somehow that exists to this day, but it has gotten better, as you say. That law coming into effect in '99, I think the attitude has shifted. I remember hearing a lot more people talk about it when I first came here in 2006, and I think it has like that 70% number. That's definitely the result of it's climbed. I mean to say
Yeah.
to up to 70%, so it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, I think just in general, like seatbelt safety in cars in Japan is really laxed. I think it was even more recently that they passed a law that said people in the back seat have to wear a seatbelt. Maybe even 10 years ago, there was no law that said they had to. And so you get into cars with people and you're putting your seatbelt on in the back seat and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trying to be safe." And they're like, "Oh no, you don't have to." I'm like, "Yes, yes you do."
It's a shocker for sure. I guess every society kind of gets used to it at their own pace. There was a famous story in the U.S. that when seatbelts first became mandated, like if you buy a sufficiently old car, there's no seatbelt sometimes, especially in the back. And then they began to mandate seatbelts everywhere, and people used to cut seatbelts out because they were like, oh, I can't believe they're junking up my car with this nonsense safety measure, and it's in the way. And then they would just slice out the seatbelts from their cars. So there's definitely like a kind of a populist revolt in the United States against seatbelts when they were first, a big thing.
Is that like a Kentucky thing?
I've heard that outside of the Kentucky context, and I mean this is
Okay.
going back into like the 50s and 60s
Oh, okay.
when this was sort of happening. But I would say it doesn't happen anymore. But like in the transitional period, people always have a reaction that's like against their own self-interest, but they don't understand that. But I think Japan is catching up and getting a lot better on it, though you still see it, and it's markedly different than in the US, where seatbelts are kind of the norm, car seats are kind of the norm, and they're obsessed about even.
A couple other things that I've noticed here that strike me as a little off and then unsafe. A lot of times you'll see people put the car seats in the front seat facing forward. I think, actually, I have the numbers here. In the
Mhm.
US, there are 23 states now that have laws requiring car seats to be in the back and facing the rear. And
Mm.
then the rest of the states all have some kind of law that state that you have to have kids in the car seat in the back at least. But in
Mm.
Japan, there's no such law kind of, distinguishing where and how they should be put in. It's just kind of right now, I think it just says kids under 6 have to be in some kind of child safety device. And so you'll see a lot of these front facing seats in the front seat. And it seems like a lot of people just don't know about the dangers of that. So when you're buying
Mm.
a car seat from anywhere, there's not much information to go by.
Interesting. Yeah, we haven't gone into the car seat purchase yet, really, so we haven't dived into it much.
I think I'm a little ahead because I've been trying to find something that's like a convertible like car seat into a stroller situation.
Hmm.
I've seen a couple in the U.S. and they seem really convenient, but it's kind of hard to find. We've only found one so far.
I'm not sure what we'll do, but we'll have to look into it sooner or later. We got that
Yeah, sooner than
C-section
us, I think.
scheduled. Cool. Well, I was thinking for on our end of things, we're looking more at buying a car, and that's step one for us. Get the car
Yeah,
settled on. And my wife and I have walked around a few used car lots. We've, just to see the broad like selection of all types of cars. We've done a little research online, and then we kind of got our priorities narrowed down. So I'm going to introduce, without further ado, my top 5 baby-friendly car features. And I'm going to start from number 5. I think I've ranked these in order.
nice.
But number 5 priority is the size of the car in terms of something to consider.
Right.
And if you think, okay, family time, let's get a van. That's what your mind might jump to. But van is not really one size fits all in Japan. There's the what I would call the much too large van, like the Alphard is one of those, the Voxy, the Noah, the Odyssey.
Yeah.
These are like the full size sort of luxury vans, just massive, massive vehicles.
Yeah.
And for me, this might not be as big of a problem for you living more in the countryside there in Toyama. But in Kanazawa, it's just a matter of getting through these narrow neighborhood streets, and you're going to encounter those constantly. Getting into parking lots where sometimes the only parking available is like, in the back corner of the lot, or, maybe only K car spots are available or something. And just the narrowness of the lanes, and sometimes the lanes will go from 2 lanes to 1 lane without any warning whatsoever. And you just always need to be very nimble. So I wouldn't want the anxiety attack of driving around the Alphard, like the full-sized massive family van. So my wife and I, if you had a couple of kids, 3 kids, yeah, then maybe size it up. But if you're talking about your first kid, then I wouldn't go so huge on the van personally.
Now you've talked before about needing like a certain amount of seats in the car. Have you picked like a firm number for how much space you actually need?
Well, that's to come on the list, my friend.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting
That we're gonna get there. Well, let me go to number 4 on my list, and that
Okay.
is okay. So you want to get the safety, or you want to get the not the safety, but the size, right? And then another thing that you've got to balance out with the size is the fuel efficiency. And so I would love to have a hybrid vehicle of some sort,
Right.
just to get that sweet, sweet fuel economy. That's what I
Right.
want. Like there are priorities just for practicality's sake about fitting in and, doing the things you want to do. But then the practicalities on the other end are not paying so much for gas and just burning a bunch of gas all the time. So, yeah, hybrid. I would love to have a hybrid. So not the largest vehicle, and hybrid would be good. And then that brings me to number 3, the aforementioned seating. What do you want for seating? And for me, this is when K car goes right out the window, because a K car by law at maximum can seat 4 people.
Right.
You will never find a 5-seater K car. They
Right.
don't make it. There will never be 5 seatbelts. It's just a 4-seater at max. And this will be different for everyone. You might think like, oh, 2 parents, 1 kid, K car could still get the job done. And you do see families with K cars. But we've got our in-laws like living in the same city, and that brings our total up to 5 if we want to go to a restaurant, or if we want to travel to the grandparents' house or something, which is a couple hours out of town. It's either always take 2 cars or get something that can seat at least 5. Then thinking a standard sort of full-sized car, 2 seats in the front, 3 seats in the back, one of those being a car seat, it's not going to be too comfortable to get like the 2, my wife's parents, my wife, me, and a car seat. So then I
Right.
thought, okay, you gotta bust it out. You gotta go at least 6, and then you're back in van territory. But not the full-size van. A little bit more of a reasonable van. Reasonable hybrid van is what I'm talking about. This is what I've landed on. So a key component of the reasonable mid-sized van is number 2 on my list, the sliding door.
Almost essential in Japan.
Yeah, sliding door is so crucial. And you are not the owner of a sliding door in
Nope,
your
not at
fleet of
all.
vehicles right now.
I
So
miss
are you
it.
worried about this? Yeah. Would you prefer a sliding door?
I would prefer it on, I think, Moe's car, because that's the only car it would
Mhm.
make sense on.
Yeah, that's good. My main fears are, parking is often tight, and when you have a child, you are I mean, by definition, you have to load and unload every single time you get in and out of the car because the child himself needs to be loaded and unloaded into the car.
Yeah.
And you need a little bit of elbow room because you got to, stand there at the door, deal with all the straps and all this. And you don't want to be in a tight parking space with a regular door that you can only half open because it's too close to the next car. So you get that sweet sliding door, massive open door space. You can stand there, get the kid out, and then you just basically touch the handle and it slides back itself. We were also talking to someone who's selling cars, or buyer seller of cars. We're trying to get rid of our K car, and he said he has kids, and his main concern is when the kid gets old enough to open the door him or herself, then it's another worry because that kid's just going to slam the door into whatever's on the other side of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you have the sliding door, that problem disappears, and you can let the kid then open and close the door by themselves.
Or you could just use that useful child lock, and then
Yeah,
you just do it for them.
keep them pinned in the back for sure. That's another way to go. But it was for me like one less worry of like, oh yeah, let the kid get in and out, and then I don't have to, worry about things. So sliding door seems pretty essential. And finally, number one on the list, which has to kind of be number one by default, is the safety of the vehicle. And we talked about this a bit, I guess, off the air, but the K car, there's no way a K car can be as safe in some sort of accident as a full-sized car.
I mean, yeah, depending on the type of accident you have, unless it's head on, that K car is going to get destroyed.
Yeah, it's just the K car has all the requirements about specifically the one that I would worry about is the weight. The weight of the thing has to be really light. And so if you run into anything heavier than what you're at the disadvantage in that crash, and you're going to take the brunt of the force. So just on weight alone, the K car can't be as safe. And they have good safety features, of course. And then we both came across some research that said, the severity of injuries is not statistically significantly different between a K car crash and a full-size car crash. But still, I mean, just like the philosophy of the crumple zone, like you want to have something with a little bit of size to it if you're going to have a crash to absorb this kind of impact. And it seems to bode better for you in terms of walking away from the accident or, getting less severe whiplash and things of that nature. So I feel like K cars with the kid to me, if you have the option, set the K car aside and go ahead and get the full-sized car. So to run down the list again, you want something not too big, but still probably, van sized. Hybrid would be preferable, like probably 6 seats, get the sliding door, something big enough to be safe. And that has led me to my number one choice. It's the Honda Freed.
Oh, nice.
And this will be no surprise to anyone who's like looked for a car with kids in mind. The Honda Freed is all over the place. It's just a nice like minivan looking sort of, there's a hybrid version. They've got a 6-seater version with a nice aisle right down through the middle. Seats in the back fold up. So you've got a lot of storage. You could get 5 people in the family.
So it's not a bench in the back.
Yeah, not a bench. They do make a Honda Freed that's a 7-seater, and it's actually a 2-3-2 arrangement.
Oh.
And, but it makes it a little bit hard to get into the back when you've got that 3 bench in the middle. So you got to load the
people in the rear seats from the trunk, basically.
I think you can fold the bench forward, or sections of the bench can fold forward and slide, and they can weasel their way back in there. But once you enter the Honda Freed 6-seater and you see that aisle that goes all the way back, you're like, oh yeah, I can picture it. Yeah. I can see like grandma like climbing in the middle through the sliding door and then walking right back to the back seat or something. It's just very easy to imagine.
Putting grandma in the back, huh?
Grandma's in the back, yeah. I figure, I don't know. That's just, grandmas are small, they're compact.
You got to be good to your grandma.
sneak their way back there. Not a lot of leg room, if I'm being honest. So you got to get somebody about 5'2" back there. Grandma slides right in at 5'2". And yeah, the Freed is just, it's where it's at. I would recommend a newish hybrid Freed. Just spend the money, go for it, and all your worries are taken care of. Traveling out of town, pile in the Freed. And it's also another option. Well, I was going to say close second, but it's a distant second as far as I'm concerned, is the Sienta.
I was actually thinking you might look into that one as well.
Oh, yeah?
I'm surprised you don't like that one.
The Sienta, for me, it's about, at that point, it's just about the design of the thing and the way it looks from the outside.
Okay.
This is the Toyota Sienta. It's a little bit more like, with the exterior design, they went a little bit more like curvaceous and bulbousy or something.
Yeah.
And the Honda Freed is just very sleek and the straight lines around everything. And we looked at a Sienta, we got inside, and it was like two-toned interior color, but then you can see the exterior color, and then there's this orange line of like something that goes around the inside, and you're looking at like 6 different colors inside the car, and it kind of annoyed me.
Yeah, I've been inside one once, and it's not the most comfortable car I've been in. It's definitely not even in the top 5 in Japan.
Yeah.
I felt like I was kind of like sitting too high in a car that's kind of a little squat.
Yeah, feeling top heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, just the interior, it was like they were doing too much. And then the exterior, also, they were trying to make a statement with their big curvy lines and stuff. And it rubbed me the wrong way. Just not a fan. But those are all aesthetic and ultimately superficial. So if you found a nice deal on a Sienta, by all means, go for it if you're happy with it. But the Honda Freed is just so refined. It's like you and your baby could smoke cigars and read leather-bound books in there. It's just like so. It's
Your
it's
baby's
very nice
so
looking.
cultured already.
Baby's cultured enough to smoke a cigar. Day one. That's my goal. So that's the car roundup. Honda Freed is the way to go. We did test drive a different car, and this was also in the running. And only because we were going to get a crazy good deal on it, but we found a Prius for sale that was sort of outside the realm of the dealerships. It was just on Facebook again, the old Facebook marketplace.
I'm always weary about buying a car from somebody that's not a dealer. As much as I distrust and dislike car dealers, I'm more distrustful of people just selling a car individually for some reason.
Yeah. I was raised on buying cars from people randomly through the classified ads. Like that's the only way I ever got cars, was just searching through. But yeah, so this Prius came up, and the thing about a dealership, even a used car lot, there's obviously markup, and whatever they advertise the car at, they're like, yeah, that's the base price, but then we need to, service it a bit more and do X, Y, and Z, and it's actually going to cost $2,000 or $3,000 more than we told you in the first place. So the only way to get a true deal is to buy it individual to individual. You're gonna overpay other than that. So right. We thought there's a Prius up for grabs, and it had a new battery recently installed, like a new hybrid battery, so it was going to get excellent mileage. And we thought,
and that's kind of the big thing about a Prius, like the battery's the thing that gets shot, so once that goes, you're like, oh crap.
Yeah you're basically driving like a heavy Corolla at that point. But and the battery's expensive to replace as well, so we found an old one with a newish battery, and we thought, oh, this is our chance, and we don't have to pay some middleman an exorbitant fee. So we agreed to meet up and then test drive this Prius. And it doesn't have the sliding door, but it has like much better mileage, so it's kind of balances out. It'll be fine. So we went to test drive it. We went to a college campus. The person who was selling it was a student at a college, like a graduate student at a college, so about our age. But we went to the college campus, and we got in the car checking things out, and then it was in a parking lot. Like, picture a college campus, like massive buildings all around, dormitories and stuff, and multi-story buildings and big parking lots, and it's all very like, feels like you're downtown somewhere. And we went out of the parking lot. This is no joke. We sort of turned left out of the parking lot, and within 10 seconds, we felt like we were in the wilderness of like Noto Peninsula or something. There was just randomly, we went down this road that went directly into the forest because we're not familiar with the area.
Whoops.
And the road went down from like a good, decent sized road like you would expect, and it went quickly into like single lane, treacherous mountain path. And I'm talking about night to day in 10 seconds. we were down this road, and then we
Was
felt
this
like
was this just you guys or with the owner of the car as well?
it was just the two of us. We were
Oh,
trusted
wow.
to drive by ourselves, which is nice. So we were on this little path, and we're like, what is with this road? This is insane. And we felt like we were, hours away from civilization all of a sudden. And we were like, well, I mean, it's fine. It's still a fine road. We'll just drive down it and see what's up. So then 30 seconds into the drive now, this is like an action-packed drive. Things are happening like every few seconds. 30 seconds into the drive, mind you, we're in the wilderness now. And what comes charging out of the side of the forest, like onto the road, but a wild boar.
Nice.
So I've literally, at this stage of my life, I've driven a Prius for about 30 seconds. I have that much experience under my belt. And suddenly I'm on a treacherous path, and a wild boar bursts out into the road. And I know that I'm going to hit this wild boar. It's a certainty. And so meanwhile, it's like person to person. So I have no idea what the insurance relationship is.
Right.
I have no idea, like if I demolish this car or go over a boar, I mean, that wrecks everything.
Yeah.
And then do I have to buy this car? Like, all these thoughts are rushing through my mind in the 1 second I have to prepare for hitting this boar. And so then I hit the brakes. I'm not a slam on the brakes person, because I feel like slamming on the brakes causes you to lose control a little bit. I'm more of like a slow it down, balance it out, hit the boar at a low speed, like without losing control. And so I managed to slow down as best I could. We probably got down to like 10 to 15 miles an hour by the time we smashed into this wild boar. And I would say that it worked out well, because we really, like, it was more of an aggressive nudge of the boar back into the forest is what happened.
Well, like a bounce off the car and
Yeah. We didn't really go over the boar. Like, it wasn't tires, like,
well, they have a pretty
cleaning.
low front end, so if anything, I think you'd pick up the boar and it would land on your
that's
hood.
true. Yeah, it's a real 50-50 scenario. If the boar takes a dive, it would probably just like it would probably get pinned between the bumper and the ground and drag. Yeah, so the boar, like, sort of, we lost sight of it because it was like night as well. It was nighttime. The boar, I saw the contact, and then we kept going straight, and I was like, I hope there's not extensive damage to this front end. I feel like we were going slow enough, but a boar is a sturdy animal. It could have done some real damage. So we turned around and came back, and then there was no dead boar on the side of the road, and no boar at all. So he sort of ran back off into the forest.
And never coming back to that road again.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrifying. And then we got back onto the main road, went to a convenience store, like in civilization now, and looked at the front of the car, and there was no damage whatsoever on the car. There was just some, like, I would say, boar grease.
Ew.
I don't know if that's the right word. There were some boar leavings on the car for sure, like a bit of like dust and, like, I don't know, muck or something.
Yeah.
So I just you wipe that off with your sleeve and then like polish it up again, and then you're in the morally ambiguous position. The question is, do you report back to the owner of the car that you've had somewhat of an accident, or is that creating problems where problems don't exist?
Wow.
So that is my question for you is, we're jumping into that segment early. My question for you is, when there's no damage whatsoever, do you even broach the subject with the car's owner?
Yeah, I think I would.
Oh, really?
I've had a few run-ins with accidents with cars and stuff, so at this point I'm overly cautious and truthful with car stuff.
Let me complicate the issue slightly.
Okay.
And that is that I've never met the owner of this car. And that is because the owner of the car got a job outside of town, and he moved there. And so he left his car here, and his friends are the ones who are showing the car and like handling the keys and the documents and stuff. So anything that you report to the friend, that friend then has to call the owner, and it turns into like a game of telephone, and you're describing things like at one person removed.
100%. I would not say anything then.
Would not bring it up. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mostly because, and maybe this is again distrusting on my part, but I wouldn't trust that the friend wouldn't then blame other damage on me.
Yeah.
And
You
that
get
would be
into
my
that.
only cautious worry about that.
Yeah, it turns into a real like he said kind of a chain, and
Yeah.
then you like the guy who owns the car is like, whoa, I want to know what happened. Like, show me this car. And he's expecting the worst.
Yeah.
And so I took it upon myself to assess the car, realize that nothing bad had happened, that there was more or less a healthy nudge that had happened that caused not even a dent, but just it's wipe offable like damage. So that was fine. And damage is a strong word. I mean, for legal purposes.
Evidence?
I shouldn't. Yeah, evidence is much better. Evidence still puts me in a legal mindset. Oh, circumstantial evidence on the car. But I didn't bring it up. And we'll just pray that no one ever listens to this podcast who knows both parties and puts everything together. The car's totally fine.
How does Ayumi feel about this? She was in the car with you, right?
Yeah, we were on the same page. Once we saw the car and that everything was fine, and an animal's soft. It's like if you hit a brick wall, there's going to be a scratch. But an animal's a soft. That's where we get teddy bears. They're based on animals. So 100%. You sort of, and I bet that I was thinking about the boar the next morning. Like he probably woke up with like a sore shoulder. Like it's not a horrible thing that happened. He was fine.
Right.
Yeah, I think we were on the same page of like, oh yeah, car's absolutely fine. We didn't go over anything. It was just a bit of like a nudge that happened. And
I think that's the most important thing, that whatever you decided to do, that you were both on the same page with it, so that one person wasn't like, oh man, I really wish we would have done this. Created that like anxiety or something.
And it turns into like an Edgar Allan Poe story of one person reveals the truth, one person hides the truth. Somebody has to murder somebody and bury them under the floorboards, and it's obviously that kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was the tale of the test drive. And at the end of the day, we have more or less decided against the Prius for a number of reasons. And one is that it was a bit old, and then it had a bit of like damage all around. Not bore damage, mind you.
Just
not related to
damage.
It was about 17 years old. So like the, accumulation of this and that, and it looked a bit rough. And then we thought, we can do better, I think.
What was the mileage on that one? Do you remember?
Massive. It was like in kilometers, it was a quarter mil, over a quarter mil. Yeah. So yeah,
so it was over like 150 maybe. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. And but luckily though, newish hybrid battery. So that was going to go for years and years more, being very reliable. But still, I mean, 250,000 kilometers. My goodness.
Yeah, I'd just be worried about all the other stuff, like your drivetrain, your brakes, the engine that's actually in there as well.
Yeah, transmission still. So there's a lot that could go wrong.
Yeah. Well, good call on the Freed.
Yeah, we've got our sights set on a Freed now, I think.
Do you have the one that you actually want picked out yet, or is it just the type that you're selecting?
There's one out there that I like, but it is $20,000. I mean, in Japanese yen, it's 2 million yen, which is quite a lot to pay for a car.
How old is that one?
Still searching around. That's a 2017.
Okay, not too bad.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. It's like perfect inside. The trouble with a hybrid battery is, depending on who you ask, some people would say you need to replace it as soon as 5 years in. Some people call that window 5 to 7 years. And then you'll hear about people who let a hybrid battery go about 10 years. And at 10 years, it's considered to be fully shot, I think. So at 10 years, you're getting no value out of it. And then the replacement on a hybrid battery, depending on how you go about it, is anything from like $2,000, $3,000. It's in that range to get that done.
I want to see a comparison versus the gas that you would spend over the time versus the cost of a replacement battery.
Yeah.
Just financially, if it's worth it to go hybrid or not. I mean, obviously, environmentally, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But are you actually spending less in the long run?
Yeah. For me, I care less about the money. You know me, money's no object.
Obviously.
Independently wealthy. Yeah. So I would fall on the side of the environmentally friendlier option if given the choice.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I am interested in the difference. Like, how much am I paying or saving, like, just to make this car move around town for several years?
Yeah.
It would be of interest to me, but ultimately I would pay for the environmental benefits. All right, so that's it for our car talk saga. Tom and Ray. Tom, rest in peace. Ray, keep fighting the good fight. Car talk, everybody go listen to it. Great show. Let's move on
To Japanese of the day, kind of.
Yes. The Japanese of the day is not a word this time, but it is the Japanese language proficiency test, which is coming up for us soon.
Yep.
As of this recording, it's going to be tomorrow, but we put these out like a week after. So if anyone has taken the JLPT, you might be thinking, well, that was a week ago. Yes, indeed. We're talking about the same JLPT, the December 2021 JLPT.
Yep.
And we're both taking it tomorrow.
Yes, but different levels.
Yeah, and in different prefectures as well, so different test sites and the whole deal.
Right.
But yeah, the JLPT, it's as I was saying, it stands for Japanese Language Proficiency Test. There are 5 levels of it. 5 is the lowest level. 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 is like very difficult. It's still a bit below perfect fluency, but it's as hard as the JLPT gets. These levels are also referred to with the letter N. So you'll hear people talk about N5, N4, N3, N2, N1, and the N doesn't actually mean anything concrete. They revamped the JLPT, I want to say about 10 years ago. And at that time, because it used to only be 4 levels. It used to be 4, 3, 2, 1. And then they added a level, which was technically, I think, the level 3 is what was added. So kind of the 3 and
they just squished one between.
Yeah, and they revamped everything, but fundamentally the thing that was added was the one in the middle. So then to compare the old version and the new version, some people say the N stands for new. So like the new 5, the new 4, the new 3 or whatever. But yeah, it's I'm gearing up for the 3 tomorrow.
Yeah,
right down the middle.
I'm getting ready for the N5, going baby steps.
Yeah, I like to knock them off one by one. I took the 5 and passed it, took the 4 and passed it, took the 3 and failed it, and so now I'm taking the 3 again. But I like to knock them all out one by one, year after year.
That's good.
Yeah, what's your study plan looking like, or what did it look like leading up to the 5?
Twice a week. I meet with a tutor in town here. Yep.
Good. And you've got a textbook that you work through?
No. So I signed up for this thing. When you go into the JLPT registration, you have to do it, I think it's like 5 months in advance before the actual test date. So at that time, it was summer, August, I think. And I was really optimistic about my studying potential. However, since registering, I haven't done anything really.
Yeah, that's how it plays out.
Yeah, I wish you could register closer to the actual test date, because then I would be more realistic about like, oh, okay, I haven't really studied, I'm definitely going to bomb this thing, I don't want to waste my 6,000 yen, which is where I'm at now.
Yeah, and that's good info that you've dropped there. It is about 6,000. It used to be 5, but the price keeps going up.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you've got that to look forward to. The more you fail, the more you will have to pay, because the prices will continue to rise. I've heard it summed up like the N5. One of my friends said you could probably just study intently for a couple of weeks. You could go from almost no Japanese, study very intently for a few weeks, and then you could probably pass the N5. Yeah. And that was my experience with the N5. It's not too big of an ask. And honestly, the thing about the N5 that confused me the most is that they, a certain number of kanji characters are included as like, these are kanji characters appropriate for use on the N5, and then slightly more difficult for the N4, and so on and so on.
Right.
And so you'll have a kanji character that you see frequently and that you're familiar with, but then is not technically suitable for the N5. So they'll replace that kanji character with the hiragana characters on the N5. Oh. And then for you to suddenly see this more or less common kanji written in hiragana, you're like, wait, what is this word? And you're trying to suss out like what this thing is. But if they just would have shown you the kanji, you would have known what it was immediately.
Okay. That's something good to look forward to.
Yeah, the one that threw me was the kanji in the middle of a day, like, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like Nichiyobi.
Uh,
The yo is kind of a complex looking kanji,
yeah,
but you see it frequently because it's in the days of the week, so you see it all the time.
right.
But on the N5, they won't give you that kanji, and so I was seeing that, like, the days of the week written out in hiragana, which is never how you see them,
No.
and I was trying to figure out, like, what is this in reference to, and it hung me up for 5 or 10 seconds of, like, what is this word even, and I was trying to parse it out, and I realized, oh, it means Monday, got it. And then you move on. So the N5 sometimes even shoots like below where you are, and then that's troublesome too. So I've got confidence in you passing the N5.
I cumulative, it's been about 6 years of studying off and on Japanese. So I feel like cobbling all of that together, I can get
Hmm.
through this.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty confident with my kanji in general. So I'm not too worried about that part. It's actually all the grammar stuff that I'm more worried about, that I have most
Mm.
of my issues with.
I feel the same way. Are you using an app, by the way, to study the kanji characters?
No, I was using the what is that? Anki. I was using that like a flashcard, but I haven't in the past maybe year.
Okay. Bold move.
Yeah.
No app, but going in head first. I'm
Yeah.
on Memrise. I think a lot of people use Memrise. I mean, Anki is very popular. Memrise, I think, is a bit more like cartoonishly gamified or something.
Yeah,
But
I use Duolingo sometimes, which is like that.
yeah, yeah. If you want to follow me on Memrise or become my Memrise friend, my username, I believe, is all one word: Justin then some numbers. Justin then some numbers, no spaces, no underscores. Please search for me and add me on Memrise so we can be buddies.
Nice. Is that
And
also your
my
password? Justin, then some
Yeah,
numbers.
some numbers, yeah. I might have been, yeah, reminding myself of my password and my username. I don't know. I make no guarantees. But yeah, please follow me on Memrise, and then I will put you to shame with my sheer volume of points. That's ultimately what I want to do. I want to shame everyone with how many Memrise points I have.
Right. So
The
it's the amount of
master.
time you spent in the app that you earn more points in it, right?
Yeah, well, the amount of, like, sort of correct answers you get when you're, flipping through your flashcards and choosing this means that, and, clicking the right things, spelling things correctly, you
Gotcha.
get a certain amount of points for all of those. And not that this will mean anything to anyone who doesn't use Memrise, but I can't resist the opportunity to toot my own horn. I have 22.5 million Memrise points,
It sounds like a
my
lot.
friends.
I have
It
no
sounds like a
idea.
lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's because it is a lot. It's a lot of Memrise points.
How many years of use is that?
Oh yeah, it's 3 years of daily use,
Daily.
and yeah, 3 years daily, and then before I used it intermittently. So
All this
probably
does is make me feel more depressed about learning Japanese.
yeah, because I'm embarking on the N3 after years and years and millions of points.
Yeah.
But here's a little bit of encouragement to everyone. I'm really bad at this. I've always been bad at foreign language, and when I messaged my friend who also uses the Memrise app. He has about 5 mil. He tries,
Oh,
but
okay.
5 mil. So he's got like 5 million, which is a really respectable point total. And I messaged him when I passed 20 million, and I was like, "Hey, man, just the 20 million points for me, thanks." And his response to me was so deflating, and that was, "Oh wow, 20 million. So you're gonna sign up for the N1?" And I was like, "Well, I failed the N3 on about 20 mil, so maybe the N1 is in my distant future. I don't know."
Right.
So if you have that many points, you should be better, but it's just that I'm uniquely bad at this sort of thing.
I think I'm
And
there with you.
yeah, it's holding me down, man. So yeah, it's my brain. It's me being stupid. That's what holds me back. But yeah, oh, it's hard. It's very, very hard. What you can do, though, and this is a little memorized tip to everyone, don't only get vocabulary sets on Memrise, but also get grammar sets on Memrise, where it's like they'll give you a verb conjugated in such a way, and then you have to choose, which, like, Japanese phrase means this verb. Like, they'll give you, instead of just a vocab word like dog or cat, they'll give you a phrase that says like, I needed to study ahead of time, like this sort of complex grammatical phrase. And then you have to choose exactly how that should be arranged in Japanese. And the grammar sets are quite valuable because, as you were saying, the grammar is like the hardest thing to pin down, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And the whole, like, sometimes like the grammar is like completely different when you're saying two similar things, but not quite the same. So it always throws me off in daily conversation. I'm saying something, people are like, I don't know what you mean. And I'm totally just like one thing off in the grammar.
Yeah. It's a big problem for me still to this day, is like an active verb versus a passive verb. You know, like I made the food versus the food was made by me. The way the verbs are done that way, and then it changes what your subject is and what your object is. So if you've used the wrong verb form and switched around your subject and object, you can easily say like, I was made by the food, and then people are like, what are you talking about?
I'm pretty sure that's how I say most things.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like a very minor error, but then it creates this chaotic sentence. So get your grammar sets, everybody. Follow me on Memrise. I think that does it for us.
Yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
We've got a mini segment that we would like to introduce now, and that is Mark and I fumble around and try to think of a good outro line for ourselves. We've always wanted an outro line.
Yeah, before I was thinking, be good to your grandpa. But now
it's pleasant.
That, we talked about the car stuff and you mentioned the grandma. I'm going to amend that and say, be good to your grandma.
Okay, be good. It's broad, positive, clear advice. It's actionable, and I think people can use it in their daily lives.
Yeah.
I was initially thinking something with the word baby in it, and then I thought of the old Virginia Slims motto, which is, you've come a long way, baby. But I thought, I don't know how many people are up on their like 1970s Virginia Slims advertising campaigns these days. You know, kids these days, they don't follow their old tobacco mottos. So I'm gonna have to amend that, and I'm gonna work it out here on the spot. This is live improvisation of an outro catchphrase.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, baby, you gotta be good to your grandma. That's gonna be mine from now on. My flag is in it. I've staked the claim, and I think we're good to go.
Baby, be good to your grandma.
Yeah, I can't see any problems with it, so I think
I think that's pretty
this will be
great.
a short-lived segment because we both nailed it.
Yeah, we pretty much just finished it, so
no question.
Well, thank you for listening today. We hope this episode was entertaining and informative. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us either on Twitter or via email. You can find us on Twitter at jpopspodcast or by email at info@thejpops.com. So until next time,
baby, be good to your grandma.